can't do. But I feel like the way that science and math and other STEM fields are structured, it's like, oh, you have to go through like X, Y, and Z, and you have to be able to do like this, that, and the third. But it's all very much disconnected from like any cultural context. So it's so abstract and out there, like in the world, as opposed to like the way that we do things in our community. It's like things are very much embedded in practice and in context and the things that we do. So for example, if you can braid hair, you can for damn sure be an architect, right? Because the spatial analysis that it takes to be able to part and have them part evens and to know how much hair you need and to have every strand be the exact like width all the way down the hair until you get to the end. But that is skills, all the skills that you need to braid or skills that you need to be an architect, right? Or skills that you need to do other things. But we, because it's like things that Black people do, there's no value on it and we don't teach it in schools, but we still need to know spatial analysis and you still have to know geometry, you still have to know all those things, but y'all already know it. It's just that the way that we teach it doesn't allow you to tap into all the things that y'all already know. And so I love going up into spaces and being like, y'all thought, no, let me tell you how, like already in our community, like we've been doing these things and we've been doing them through our ancestors, we passed it on, we can still do it today. So instead of talking about what like Black communities and Black students need to do differently, then how about we talk about like what's wrong with your school system and what's wrong with like the curriculum that you're doing? Because y'all not gonna tell me that my babies like are not smart and can't do what I know y'all can do.
Okay. Okay, what's the statement you're tired of hearing about POC in the math and science field?
Honestly, it's that deficit thinking of we can't, what's it called? I think going back to what LaToya shared earlier, like we can't, if we haven't mastered this certain skill set, namely one thing, especially in the science, it's like mathematics. If you don't have a mastery, some sort of like a mastery of that in the way that they want you, that it has been prescribed in your classrooms, then you can't be an active participant in this, in science. I think, so anything where, anything that bars a students from participating in sciences just because maybe their math foundations are not seen as strong or where they need to be. Because even now, especially one thing that's coming up now is like coding, anything, the coding or anything like that. There are people who have had no background in the physics, in mathematics or whatever, but they're your coders today. They're these boot camps or programs that people can get into, and it's not necessarily building off of a mathematics type, a really abstract mathematics type skill set. It's people who with art history, artists, philosophy majors, communications majors who are participating in this field. So what are we saying by this? I think one of my biggest things is just, yeah, that type of talk.
Yeah, I would echo that. And I think the thing I would add is that the like that it's like STEM will save us. Like it ain't saved us yet. I don't know. I don't know where, like why that keeps being perpetuated. And also just the need that like, I think how it's thought about like underrepresented minority instead of like an overrepresented the overrepresentation of like Eurocentric culture and science. So we don't, folks are like, we just need more like Black and Indigenous and other people of color like in the field without reflecting on like, well, what culture are we bringing them into that will actually support their like ability to thrive in this situation. Which because the people are like, oh, we did, X, Y, and Z to recruit them and they come and they can't stay, which again goes back to the deficit thinking. And so shifting to can't really find the words, sort of shifting to interrogate what culture already exists there that keeps people out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last question is, what's a piece of advice you would give to someone stepping into the math and science field?
I'm going to start off with say, be prepared to have to deal with failure. That is a part of your learning process. I mean, that is why why we've stumbled against so many different innovations, is because people had the audacity to fail, step into and learn from that failure. One, and then two is find your community. Once you get into, I mean, high school is going to be a space where like certain supports are right there for you. Once you get out of this space of high school and you step into undergrad, a lot of schools will try to recruit you with whatever. They'll have all these beautiful brochures and whatnot, and reality won't set in until your first day in classroom. So I'm going to say, just find your community, find your people. And that's why I really stressed out clubs and reaching out, because those are going to be the spaces in which you're going to be able to either find mentorship and see yourself reflected in this work.
Yes, so find your community was the first thing I was going to say. And so Darren already explained it, so I don't need to go more into that. Except I will, because it will get hard. So like having those people that can help you when things are just not going well or not going how you want, that you can like lean into community is so important. And the other thing I would say is like constantly hold yourself accountable to why you're in that space in the first place. So unless you're at an HBCU or maybe perhaps Medgar, most science and math institutions are predominantly white. And so knowing like why you're there and keeping yourself grounded will also help you when like you're being bombarded with things that don't fit well with you or align with perhaps why you're there. Which it doesn't have to be either. So you could be there to make money and to support your community.
Well, those are all of my questions. So if anyone wants to unmute or ask a question in the chat, you're free to do so.
I have a question. LaToya, what school did you say you played for?
I didn't, but I will say it now. I played for college. You mean for ball? I played for Wofford College.
For who?
Wofford. It's a small D1 school in South Carolina.
D1, nice. I guess this question is for both of y'all because, well, you mentioned you're a first generation college student. I don't know if Aderinsola is also first generation, but it's a weight, like, because you're really learning as you go. I was a first generation college student too, and was just fit. Like my parents or my mom wasn't really, she just didn't know how to help me. But at the same time, like I feel like when you're a first generation college student, particularly like a student of color, we're like encouraged not to pursue sciences. So you mentioned like sociology. I'm just wondering if your experience has been, were you guys encouraged to do other fields besides the sciences because of who you were and what your background was? Like, oh, this is easier for you to do, you should try this, instead of, no, go do biochemistry and be whatever you want to be. So were you guided in any particular way based on like you being a first generation college student? That's it.
LaToya, do you want to take this first?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't, yeah, I mean, I think from like schools and teachers, I wasn't guided in any particular way. Like no one guided me nowhere. So I didn't have that particular experience that they were saying, go here instead of doing this, but there was definitely a lack of guidance still to like help me determine or figure out where to go.
Yeah. I thank you for that question. I wish I want to remember your name.
Nina.
Nina. Thank you for that question. It's a great, because so as a STEM academic advisor, I do work with a lot of first generation students. I myself am not first generation college to pursue college. My parents are from Nigeria, so they immigrated here, but they did not know this college system. So it was limited to what they could guide me on. So Nigerian, I don't know how many of y'all probably come across Nigerian folks, but the sciences there, we have a running joke, right? That there are 3 things you should major in when you're in college. Try to be a doctor, engineer, or lawyer, you know? So that having that a part of my family dynamics was something, probably, yeah, it did kind of shape what choices I selected and how then I was encouraged once I made my selection into the sciences. In working with first generation college students, one of the biggest thing is like, that's why that the first year you arrive at any college, it's going to be very important to find your group, your club, or your or the office that's going to really support you, a departmental office, because the resources that these colleges get federal dollars, especially if you're first generation college student, for you to be there. And if they're getting these resources for you to be there, they should be using these resources to support you in your endeavor. But often what happens is after the admissions process and after you get enrolled, either they won't always make that connection for you. So it's imperative that first year that you get connected to those resources, because those resources are meant to be there from when you start to all the way to graduation. And even often they follow you beyond after you finish, as you're going into your first career. So it's very important to tap into that.
I guess I'm wondering, like, because I've been teaching for 13 years now, and so many of my Black and brown students, they automatically avoid, like, when you ask them what they going to college for, it's never math. It's like, oh, I'm going liberal arts or business management or like anything but science and math. And so I'm wondering, why is that so prevalent in our communities? Because like it has to come from somewhere. Like, I'm gonna do the part that doesn't have numbers in it, and like just building up that mentality that numbers or thinking critically is not for you, then it's like you just really pigeonhole yourself into doing specific things and not other things. So
yeah, we have a friend that does a lot of work around math and how, like, starting young, like even in elementary school, the way that math is taught, and where it's like you're either a math person or you're not, gets instilled in folks very early. So as you go on, you just consider yourself not a math person. And so when you get there and you're, the way that we teach math and how it's structured, and even how we like contextualize and theorize numbers to specific cultures and types of people. And so I think there is a way that like math as a culture and as an ideology and as a philosophy, and even the way that we teach it sort of, and when our students step into the classroom, shows that it's not for them. And like even the language that we use around, like, the people who are in math or can do X, Y, and Z are the smart kids, and people who are elsewhere are not the smart kids. So that is a piece that I would add to that, about perhaps where it might be coming from and why our students are leaning towards particular disciplines or.
Is there anyone else that has a question? Danielle, I don't know, you just mentioned something in the chat. Anything from a student that you wanted to ask? I did see a question about what did you guys want to do when you were little? Was it always science and math, or were there other things that you kind of gravitated towards when you were younger?
Oh, I bounced back between maybe thinking about being a lawyer and wanting to make medicine, just because there's different chronic illnesses in my family, and so yeah, that was Those are the two things.
That was the Nigerian push, you said. Science, math, or medicine?
I have a question.
Sure.
If you weren't doing the abolition science, what would you be doing at this time?
I'm sorry, just so clear, you said if we weren't doing it, what would we be doing?
Yes, that's my
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Sleeping. It's it's not a job. So like we do outlets, so like, we do it in our free time. So we meet Monday nights, usually from like, I don't know, 7 to 9:30, 7 to 10. And then we're like doing stuff throughout the week. So it's like I guess a passion project, if you will. So like we like lose money when we do this, we like fund it ourselves. And so yeah, I don't know if we'd be doing anything different. We have other ideas of ways we want to like grow it and do it differently. But yeah, so so this isn't like our job. And so what else will we be doing? But that's a good question for us to think about, is like, what are other ways that what are other avenues that how this could look? Yeah.
I think there were 2 hands up, so we have about probably time for 2 more questions. Alma, did you want to ask something?
No.
No? Okay.
We have Naya in the chat who asks, do you ever or have you ever thought about giving up, or what have you ever been stereotyped, and how have you addressed those things in your field?
Yeah, definitely have thought about giving up. That was definitely there. But it's interesting. I don't think that was there until like undergrad. And I guess it has something to say. I guess it has something to say to the science and math teachers that I had in high school and middle school. But yeah, definitely has been something there. I think my first 3 classes in undergrad, the dean of the College of Science and Engineering walked in and told us a third of us would fail the course. And as someone who's on a scholarship and also having to take out loans to be in school, that was some very frightening. And then again, when I was put kind of in a space where I'm working with classmates who have never, let's say, met someone who looked like me, and dealing with all their racism and also possibly the racism of the professor. Sometimes those classroom spaces were hostile. And so, yeah, I did think about giving up a lot. And the stereotypes, and it was in those moments where I felt alone in the classroom or in the labs, or because I'm the only one in my major, in my group, at my table, because my other classmates didn't want to, because of whatever assumptions that they've held about those stereotypes, didn't want to work with me. Yeah, it did get to me. And it got to me for a little bit in getting help, because I was trying to prove everybody that I belonged here. So I spent more energy trying to prove that I belonged here and try to earn rather than maybe getting the help and support I needed to maybe not take on so much of these projections that were not mine to begin with.
I think we have time for one more question.
I see one in the chat from Aya that says, have you regretted anything during your journey, or have you gotten what you hoped for? I don't regret nothing. I think in like retrospect, I'd be like, oh, there was like a different way to get to where I am. And there's different, and I think, you're only like, when you go in whatever field you go into, you're only limited by your imagination of like how you can use like what your major is. I think one of the dope things about the podcast is we get to meet people doing such amazing stuff that like I was like, oh, I would have never have thought to like develop a robot that like speaks, that like can get smarter so we can carry out conversations with like Black folks and tell stories. And so have you gotten what I hoped for? I think so. I mean, I got some student loans that I don't want, but I think I'm like in a good place and like where I want to be on my journey for now. Like, I don't think I'll be working at the museum forever, but I think just figuring out what my next steps is. Aaron?
No, I can't say that I have. I think everything, whether it be even mistakes, every decision, every mistake helped lead me to where I am here today, which is to be in community with some pretty dope people, like LaToya, and to be a part of a and to be a part of just yeah, to be able to engage the science in a way, and you also create the space in the ways in which I want to engage science and mathematics, you know, and to let our imaginations run wild. So no, I can't say there are regrets. Tough lessons, yes, but regrets, no.
Well, on that note, it was a nice ending to a wonderful time and an hour spent. I want to thank you all. Thank you special to LaToya and Darren for sharing your wonderful wealth of knowledge and your great energy with all of us. Thank you for Jaeda and your wonderful questioning. You helped me feel a lot less nervous, so thank you. And I want to thank everyone who participated and everybody who's here. I think this is like over 100 people, so there was an amazing event and a wonderful turnout. So thank you all, and hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It was amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining
Yes,
us.
thank you.
Bye. Bye. Have a nice day.
You too.
Bye.
That was pretty cute. Come visit us again. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for being here.
Bye.
Appreciate you.
Say your
Bye.
bye. Say your last goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.